Shalom, we're the Hebrew Israelites. Come out here week in and week out to prophesy the downfall of the daughter of Babylon, aka America, according to the Holy Bible. But first and foremost, I'm going to say call Halayu, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harakach. Double honors to the apostles and elders of 7:13:19, where I learned this truth from and who rule well. Salutations to the Bakiyar, the elect, the 144,000. That's 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel consist of you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous of America. The 144,000 is the governing body within the 1/3. The rest of the 1/3 comprises of elect men, women, and children. Shalom to those Israelites scattered due to the diaspora, also the triangular trade. So our people come looking like different ethnicities, having various complexions. So it's not a black thing. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites. We're just Hebrew Israelites. Shalom to those that die in this truth. It says the dead should be raised up first. Those that will be accompanying Yahweh Shah on his return, including our King Masha, who is King David. And as always, it's an honor and privilege, honor and blessing to continue to do this work. The water Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem Harakach Wadash for answering my prayers and permitting me to do such. Baba Shah Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem Harakach Wadash. Allowed us to be an edifying camp to at least one member of the elect, man. You know, which at any moment, you know, the initiation, the next stage in World War III is gonna take place when Esau goes into Iran. You know, they're gonna shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which about 40 to 45% of the world's oil transports through. And that's gonna cause a global economic collapse. And that's exactly what they want, because they want chaos to bring in order. You know? Which that order is gonna be the New World Order, which is gonna be a technocratic rule governance, in which, you know, AI is gonna be the judge, jury, and executioner. You know, which is going to be programmed supremely with all those ancient Edomite kingdoms, whether it be the pagan Greco-Roman Empire during the time of the rebirth, the Renaissance in Europe, and as well as what you have here today, America, which is a corporation of the British Crown. You know, real quick, I'm going to start at Revelation chapter 1, verse 1. It says the revelation of Yahweh Shah HaMashiach. Yahweh Shah is who the world inly calls Jesus Christ, which we know the letter J only to be 500 years. Came about in 1524 by an individual named Gassimio, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. So we know his name not to be Jesus. Now, if you were going to translate his name into modern English, it would translate to Joshua, you know? But there's no U's in Hebrews, no vowels. So going to the Paleo-Hebrew, in which is the Lashuan Tahar, the pure language in which they spoke, his name was Yahweh Shah, which means he saves or he delivers, and there's power in those names. Yahweh, which is the name of the Heavenly Father, and his Son, his name is Yahweh Shah, right? It says, which the Most High gave unto him to show unto his servants. So this Bible is only written for the elect, man. It's not written for the world. Now in return, the elect have the prophecies unsealed onto them so they can understand the scriptures in its 100% entirety. And through that, and through the foolishness of preaching to wake up like-minded men, the rest of the elect, we preach to the wind and we preach to the rest of the world, man. You know, therefore, that's why a lot of these terms have become household, like who's an Edomite, or what's an Israelite, or what's an Ammonite, or what's a Moabite, or the New World Order, or the World War III nuclear destruction. You know, and that's all through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua pouring out his spirit in these last days, man. And that spirit is the spirit of truth. Right? It says to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel. The angel was a messenger unto his servant John, who bear record of the word of the Most High and of the testimony of Yahweh Shah Mashiach, and of all things that he saw. Blessed is he that readeth. You know, so you got to read, man. And, you know, one saying is, if you want to hide something from somebody, you put it in a book. You know, there's a low thirst for education, which education means to be drawn out, you know, to draw out something that was already in you, right? So we're seeing that we're in the end times. A lot of these people, they're not having righteousness and truth being drawn out of them, man. You know, because they're infested with demons, which demons are intelligences, which could be on the left or the right hand side, man. You know, as there's a account in the book of, I believe, Kings, right? It says, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, right? So they can get themselves prepared, so they can get themselves aligned and have a allegiance with Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua Ba'ashem HaKodash, to get that Torah, which is the exemption of judgment, to be protected in these times. Similar to when Moses was prophesying, saying things beforehand for the Israelites to cover their houses, their doorposts with the blood and the lintel, man. So the death angels could pass over their houses. Same thing here in these times, man. But except blood on the doorposts, you know, the shedding of blood of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, Yahweh Shai, is that blood on the doorpost, right? And if we have his truth, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, you know, and we are of the elect, we're going to be protected in these days, man. And even in our walk now, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua has shown you, or should have shown you, glimpses of that protection, because we all have guardian angels, man. Right? It says, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. So we're in those days now, man, where the time is at hand. Now going to Revelation chapter 11. Verse 14, it says, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly, which woe means destruction, man, calamity, you know, and that's exactly what's going to happen, you know, which we're already in World War III, you know. Even in the previous wars, World War III didn't start when full-fledged conflict occurred. You know, there was events that led up to it, you know, and we're in one of the events that's going to be the final stage until the big stage, right? So the second woe was talking about World War II, which is in the scriptures, and now we're in World War III, right? And this is St. Matthew chapter 24, and I'm gonna go ahead and start at the top. St. Matthew chapter 24 verse 1, it says, and Yahushua went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples, which disciples meaning goes back to the word students, you know, came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. So they were looking at the temple before it was destroyed by Titus, right? And there was an earthquake when he gave up the ghost that rent the temple. It says, and Yahushua said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily, which verily means surely. Let me put my glove on. Which verily means surely, I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Let's get a little bit of information on that, just to back up what I was saying. Just bear with me. So I'm going to AI. The question asked was when the Jerusalem temple was destroyed by the Romans, which we know the Romans was a multi-cultural, multi-ethnicity state, but at that particular time was led by the Edomites, which is the so-called white man, started calling himself white in 1681. Due to the Bacon rebellions, right? It says the destruction of the Jerusalem temple happened in 70 CE, which is common before the Common Era, during the first Jewish-Roman War, when Roman forces under Titus besieged and captured the city. The temple was burned and torn down as part of the Roman assault. Key points: date 70 CE, event siege of Jerusalem, empire, Roman Empire, commander Titus, son of Emperor Vespasian. Outcome: second temple destroyed, massive loss of life, beginning of the long Jewish diaspora, because that diaspora is what scattered our people throughout the four corners of the earth, man. And then later on, those that were here and in the Americas, the Northern Kingdom, they were scattered due to the triangular trade, right? So when you break down these scriptures, you have to understand that the transatlantic slave trade was just a small part of the triangular trade, man. It was one leg, right? It says Jerusalem brought fully under Roman control. Context: the war began in 66 CE as a Jewish revolt against Roman rule. Internal conflict among Jewish factions weakened the city, making it easier for Rome to break through. Once inside, the Romans destroyed the temple, an event that reshaped Jewish history and religious practice. Because what people fail to realize, it's not a fairy tale book, it's a history book, man. Right? So that's what Yahushua was saying. He was prophesying, around roughly 30 years ahead of time, that the Romans were going to come and sack the temple, and that happened through Titus. That's why you have the Ark of Titus, right? Going back to St. Matthew chapter 24, verse 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? Right, because the mysteries of these scriptures is only given to the elect, man. It's not given to all people to understand. Now, you could understand bits and pieces, but that would just mean that you're not fully reanimated. But you have to understand the whole thing and commit yourself, submit yourself, and apply yourself to it, man. Because as it says in the scripture, faith without works is dead, man. You could say you have faith in certain things, but if you don't have works backing it up, then it's just noise, right? So they asked, it says, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? So it's not talking about the actual world is going to be destroyed. It's talking about the age. And when it's like, and in this particular age, there's a certain ruler that is ruling that is about to lose his power, man. Despite them thinking that they're going to rule forever. You know, let me see, get a quick preset real quick. This is 2nd Ezra, chapter 6, verse 9. But I'm going to start at verse 7. It says, Then answered I and said, What shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first? Now, the times is representative of ages, right? And the beginning of it that followeth. And he said unto me, From Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau, so these are two principal characters in this movie, man. Jacob and Esau, right? Which Esau being the antagonist, right? Which he self-proclaimed himself to be white, you know, playing on the definition of purity or pure, you know, which is all deception. Which we know him not to be white, we know him to be translucent. His blood shows forth through his skin, he's pigmentless. Right? It says we're bored of him. Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. So Esau came out first, and Jacob's hand held his heel, man, because not only is Esau going to have rule, but Jacob is going to pull him out of power, man. And that is going to happen through Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Shai is going to destroy this devil on his return, man, to get his glory, right? To get his praise. Verse 9, it says, For Esau is the end of the world. So we're at the end of the world. We're at the end of the age. Which I believe we're entering into the age of, we're exiting the age of Pisces, as they say, entering into the age of Aquarius. Let me just make sure. So according to Esau's astrological age, which biblical age, we're in the time of the Gentiles, which is the heathen nations. So yeah, we're in the age of Pisces, entering into the age of Aquarius, according to Esau's logic. You know, but really we're in the time of the age of Esau, right? In the Gentiles, coming into the age of the kingdom of heaven, which is the Israelites ruling. You so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous, which is going to be a rule in righteousness with immortality presence among those individuals, those nations I just mentioned, right? So going back to 2nd Ezra chapter 6, verse 9, it says, For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth, man. So we know that we're in the end times, man. This place doesn't have too much longer to go. So going back to St. Matthew, chapter 24, verse 4, It says, and Yahushua answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. Right. Because, that's how the Most High set it up. He set up certain spirits to deceive others. And those others, they were set up to be deceived, man. So when you have this truth, knowledge, and understanding, you got to really take heed. You got to be cautious on the things that you believe in, the things that you hear. You got to double check, fact check, peer check, peer review. Sometimes to make sure you're following after the pattern of truth, and not being taken by, as we're starting to see, certain bullshit that's been here for ages, man. One being the flat earth, which was constantly disproved time and time after time again throughout time. But yet and still, you have people that are captivated by that woman, and they ended up believing it, and they end up losing the spirit of truth, right? So you gotta take heed. Verse 5: for many shall come in my name, saying I am Hamashiach, saying that they're anointed, man. And that's what you're going to see in these times, especially when all hell breaks loose. There's going to be opportunists that are going to come about trying to, say that they're the Messiah, say that they're the anointed. You had a few examples, one being Prophet Yahweh, man. He was trying to say that he was summoning UFOs, and all while it was just balloons. And it's not just that, he got you with that deception. It's the fact that how many of these niggas fell for it, man? Because they're trying to heap onto them teachers with itching ears, man. Especially these women. If you could captivate these women, then, these men will follow. Right? It says, for many shall come in my name, saying I am a Mashiach, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars. Now that word rumor goes into reports. We've been hearing all types of reports of wars. Right now, the big one is the war against Iran, which we've been hearing about Iran for decades. Even to the fact that I want to say the Beach Boys made a song called Bomb, Bomb, Bomb Iran. And that's all because of the Rothschilds are pushing that propaganda, that croaking, because Iran doesn't have a Rothschild-owned central bank, just like all those other nations that General Wesley Clark said that the American forces were going to invade, which the American forces is the military of this Western world, man. It's part of the three unclean spirits. The Pentagon, which now, they call themselves the Department of War. It says, see that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So what do we have? We had World War I, we had World War II, and now we're in the final iteration of these wars, man. Which, something has always came out of these wars, whether it be the League of Nations, whether it be the United Nations. Now they're trying to get rid of the United Nations. Leading with America. They're trying to get out of all these different past organizations because they're about to sprout or erect something new, man. Which goes into them rising from the ashes like the phoenix, which the phoenix is a mystical bird, and that's their new world order, because they want to continue their rule, man. They don't want to relinquish their power. You know, that's why they're moving at breakneck speed, you know, to try to establish this technocratic rule where AI is going to be your God. You know, that's the image, which that image encompasses all the Roman way. But AI is the dictator. You know, which they have this movie out in theaters right now called Mercy, which goes into it, man. You know, and goes into their new system in which they want the whole world to be on, which you're gonna need a C-hip in order to buy or sell, man. You're gonna need an implantable. And that's gonna be what's gonna signify your allegiance to the system. It's gonna be the digital all, which is spelled A-U-L. You know? Verse 7, it says, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." So there's going to be a lot of the things that are going to be byproducts of this war, man. One being the economic collapse. Going to 2nd Ezra chapter 16, verse 17. Now I'm just moving with the spirit. I didn't set no lesson up prior to coming. I feel like I was just going to go with the spirit today. You know, not that I couldn't put a lesson together. You know, the lesson I did last night was dealing with the 3 unclean spirits. I think prior to that, damn, I forget. You do so many videos, you forget the last couple of videos you did. Well, it doesn't matter. If you watch the channel, you know, right? But going to 2nd Ezra chapter 16, verse 17, it says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? Right? Because it's going to be very destructive, man. And yeah, Ezra, when he saw the vision, he was afraid, but he knew that the Most High controls you. So it's only through the mercy of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua are we going to make it, man. Because he could put a spirit on you at any given moment. You know? That's why I don't understand if there's an individual that's trying to rectify or repent from their wrongs, why keep bashing them down to the ground, not considering yourself? You know? Because a lot of you that think that, you know, you're righteous, you're going to be found not to be righteous, man. And then when you look for mercy, the only mercy you're going to have is the mercy that you gave others that were trying to repent from whatever wrong they may have done, man. You know? So a lot of you are going to get what they call the blues in that day, man. Right? Verse 18, it says, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear. So even these powers, these superpowers, these nations, they're going to be in fear, man. You know, because even right now, Iran said that they can touch America, man. And they proved that by, you know, firing off a satellite into outer space. You know, a missile that went over 10,000 kilometers, which is enough to reach Washington, D.C. And we've seen the pinpoint accuracy that they have with that, 12-day war with Israel last summer, man. You know, and Israel is not really ready to fight this war because all Iran has to do is hit their nuclear plant, man. And that land is going to be uninhabitable, man. Hence the reason why you have Benjamin Netanyahu talking about Argentina, man. You know, and expanding Argentina into the greater Israel, which this is what these damn devils do, man. They try to take over everyone's land, man. That's why they chased out it. That's why in the ancient world they were chased out of lands as a thief. You know? So Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua is going to put a stop to it. It says the beginning of evils, what shall I do when these evils shall come? And these evils are going to catch these people off guard, man. These evils that are coming upon the earth are going to be like a thief in the night to these people, man. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of Yahweh Shai so cometh as a thief in the night. It's going to come as a thief in the night to those that are not watching, man. You know, those that are not sitting upon the watchtower because they're all intoxicated, inebriated, you know. But unlike them, we, right, we're sitting upon that watchtower, so it's not going to hit us as a thief. As the man that's going to go paint his fingernails, or as the woman that's going to go get some umbrellas, man. You know, their mind is fixated on things of this world. They don't understand the hell that is about to take place and is about to happen to them. People are going to lose their houses, their apartments, their jobs. They're not going to have enough money to feed their families. They're going to be seeing their kids crying and starving and hungry. It's going to be an experience they haven't witnessed before. And the main ones that are going to suffer are these women, man, that said they don't need no man, they don't need no guidance. You know, they hate men, they have a feminist perspective. It's going to be good. It's going to be good to see them finally being humbled, man. The Most High is going to be doing a lot of humbling in these times, man. Even with individuals in this truth. You know, because the man tries to establish their own sort of spirit to try to, what's the word? For lack of better terms, to try to make those that are in this truth off limits. But even in this truth, there's going to be individuals that are going to get caught out there, man. And fold. And prove that they really had their mind fixated on this world no matter how long they've been in this truth, man. You know? So, you know, that's why it says seek out your own salvation with fear and trembling, man. It could be the top guy that ends up not being right. We've seen that all throughout these decades dealing with certain camp leaders, man. And we see it right now in real time with these pseudo camps. You know, the IUIC, the ISUPK, the GOCC. You know? And any of you all other shoot-offs. You know, the only ones that have the true doctrine, the 100% doctrine of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua is Great Millstone. And even within Great Millstone, not all men are of the elect. Not all men are right. Verse 3, it says, for when they shall say peace and safety. And right now they're saying peace and safety. And guess what bipolar piece of shit is running it? Well, really, he's doing a good job. But guess who's running it, man? It's Donald J. Trump. He wants to run the board of peace. Let me see if I can get some information real quick on that. All right, what the Board of Peace actually is, fact-based, recorded, because, you know, Esau has to say fact-based, or he has to create that, you know, I don't know, you call him a paradigm or whatever. He has to create that to say that, you know, everyone else is a liar and he's the only one that with the truth, and that's bullshit. You know, that's his deception. That's him being deceptive. Really, he's the one that's the liar, and estranged from the womb, speaking lies. But going into the Board of Peace, it says, according to current reporting, the Board of Peace is an organization established by President Donald Trump, announced in September 2025, formally established January 2026, authorized by UN Security Council Resolution 2803, tasked with overseeing post-war Gaza reconstruction and allowed to deploy a temporary peacekeeping force. Right. Which, you know, that whole war on Gaza was to make that land uninhabitable, and they did that in the commencement of that war by flooding it with seawater, because their goal is to construct a canal that's going to bypass the Suez Canal, so they won't have to deal with Egypt. You know, and that's also them expanding greater Israel, man. And how they're going to achieve those goals through wars, and they're going to establish and start these wars through deception. Right? It says its stated purpose is peacekeeping and administration centered in Washington, D.C., which was one of the three unclean spirits. You know? But that's it on that. Going back to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3, it says, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them. Right, because that's when the Most High is going to put it in the minds of these leaders to move according to his will, man. We always have to remember that they're not in control. The Heavenly Father is in control, man. And we know what Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua is doing because we are his brothers. We are his friends. You know, this is Proverbs chapter 21, verse 1. The king's heart, which your heart is your mind, is in the hand of Yahweh. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. Right, so the Most High is the one that controls people's minds. He controls these leaders' minds. He controls the nigga yelling and screaming with those demons on him. He controls their minds, man. You know, by putting certain spirits on them, which is demons. You know? So we know the end game of this damn devil, man. We know that he's gonna be moving recklessly and stumbling like a drunk with the decisions that he's making, man. Real quick, this is Isaiah chapter 19, verse 14. It says, Yahweh have mingled a perverse, which that word perverse meaning wicked. Right? Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua has mingled a wicked spirit here in America. It says, in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt, which Egypt is an allegory for the house of bondage, right? To err in every work thereof. So as you're starting to see, and even you have certain nicknames like Taco, you know, or which stands for Trump always chickens out, and you know, him also implementing tariffs, which those tariffs are felt here. The tariffs are a tax on the people, you know, to probably encourage them not to buy from certain countries anymore, which is all going to backfire, man. And it's backfiring right now, right? It says, as a drunken man staggereth in his vomit. And you see drunks all the time, man. In these major cities where, you know, they have all these clubs and bars, you know, whether it be men or women, man. You know, you see them all stumbling, all ass in the air. You know, which I always hated that, man. I hated drinking. I always wanted to quit drinking and, you know, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahusai, have it. Because as the saying is, and, you know, I even have a disdain for it, man. Or for them, which is a drunk ain't shit. You know? And that's what Esau is. He's a drunk, man. And he's drunken with his philosophies, his ideologies, you know, his doctrines. And more importantly, he's just created to be a screw up, man. He's created to be a wicked. He can't help it. You know? Going back to 2nd Ezra, chapter 16, verse 19, it says, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for a minute. You know, so there's going to be a famine here in America, man. Where you're not going to be able to go to the grocery store. You know, because there's going to be wars in certain theaters of the world that's going to affect traffic, you know, shipments, you know, and, you know, if that's affected, then your grocery store sales are affected, you know, so there's going to be Hunger Games, man. There's going to be a fight for food because there's going to be a famine, and that's, you know, the arrogancy of this damn devil. He thinks he's just gonna go into one of these superior countries and take it over without any consequence, not knowing it's gonna lead to the complete and utter destruction of his own home and his neighbor's home, because as it says, the least of the flock is gonna draw him out, and that least of the flock is Amalek, which is the so-called Jew. He's gonna initiate this war and force America's hand, and Iran is just gonna go crazy, man, as a wild boar in the wood. Now, sometimes you have to understand animals. You have to study the animals. As the scripture says in Job, learn from the animals and they shall teach thee. So you have to understand the nature of a boar. And that's the spirit in which the Iranians, the true Aryans, are going to demonstrate, well, not the experience, but the characteristics that they're going to demonstrate upon you damn devils, man. And they're going to be backed. You know, China sent them air shipments of weapons. Russia sent them air shipments of weapons. So one day, you so-called white people, you're going to wake up and they're going to report that aircraft carriers sunk in the ocean, man. You know? And that's going to render them obsolete. Because now these nations, they have weapons that could hit one of their runways, man. And that will render that aircraft carrier obsolete just by them striking the runway. They can't launch any more jets. You know? Which now they don't have a safe distance. And then, of course, you're going to have, you know, certain nations like Russia and China that have, you know, sophisticated technology in their submarines that are going to creep up and shoot their torpedoes. Or they might just shoot their Poseidon, which will do away with that, with a whole battle group, man. A battle strike group, as they say. One lick. So it says, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish. You're going to have plagues out here, man. You know, when the water stops, you're not going to have sanitation, man. When they don't have people working at these water treatment facilities, you're not going to have any drinking water. You know? And that's going to produce plagues, because now people are going to be pissing on the streets, shitting on the streets. There's going to be dead bodies. There's going to be dead animals. That's going to bring about plague, and then you're going to have airborne diseases. You know, and all you people already have weakened immune system through the American diet, man. Which now, since the lead of the Department of Health, Kennedy, he inverted the whole the food periodic table, man, or whatever they call it. You know, so all this time you've been eating all wrong, which, you know, hey, ever since they came out with the idea of carnivore, and then Apostle Gabar made a video on it. A little while after that, I got on the carnivore diet. September 28th. And I think I started around 270, 260. And then October 1st, I started going to the gym, and I've been going to the gym ever since. And I've lost about, you know, I got all the way down to 228, man. You know, with about 64.4% lean muscle. As I got a scale that, you know, that shows all those things. You know? So it makes sense. And then Mama Diet prior to that was basically, you know, poke bowls. You know, my main detriment to myself was, you know, drinking and eating after that, man. Eating a whole bunch of junk shit. You know? But now that, you know, my prayers are finally answered concerning that, you know, I've been living a very healthy lifestyle. My train of thought has gone immensely better. You know, I'm doing tasks, completing tasks that, you know, I normally wouldn't want to do. And most of all, it's allowed me to be even more in the spirit, man. More doing videos, you know, a calmer mind, you know. And it all makes sense because, you know, these certain foods, whether it be fruits or vegetables, as it was pointed out, they come in seasons. You know, so it's not meant to be eaten all throughout the year, man. Only at certain times. But with meat, you can eat that all throughout the year. You know, and you got to eat the sacrifice when you sacrifice. So, you know, I recommend it. You know. But continuing, it says, are sent as scourges. A scourge is like a, you know, a lick, a whip, a lash. You know, amendment. Let's see. I'll just go to the Etma online for the word amendment. Amendment now, early 13th century, of persons correction, reformation, so for correction, you know, that's why they have in legislative jargon, they have all these times they talk about amending a bill. So the Most High is sending all these things to correct you. And that's what he does, man. He corrects one individual so the rest may fear. So there's going to be a lot of individuals that, you know, that are of the elect that are going to get with the program. when they see all this death and destruction taking place, right? Verse 21, it says, behold, victuals, which victuals your commodities, you know, your necessities, you know, food, oil, water, right, shall be so good cheap upon earth. And that's how it's been, man. You know, and it gradually started to get, you know, showing an increment in price, right? Because I remember back in the day, you can get a cheeseburger for like 39 cents, 25 cents for, you know, a can of soda. And this is in my time, and it was even cheaper before me, you know? But now, you could barely get 2 chicken strips, which, you know, I cook at home, man. I get it off the, you know, I get it out the groceries. You know, the lesser 2 evils, so to speak. You know, but now you can't even get, you know, 2 chicken strips at fucking what? Out here they got something called Texas Hot Chicken, which I only went to like once, I think, a couple years ago. And it's like 20-something plus bucks, man. You know? Or even gas in California, because it's cheaper out here in Nevada, but gas in California, it has to be between $5 or $6, man. And, you know, you don't really want to put this cheap shit in your car because it's going to deteriorate your engine, man. If your car doesn't require it, if your car doesn't require a higher octane, if you put in any type of cheap gasoline in it, I mean, if your car requires a higher octane, if you put any cheap gasoline in it, over time, it's going to wear your engine out, man. And then that's going to cause more maintenance problems, maintenance issues. You know? And some cars that you might have requires you to drive the shit out of it, man. You know, that's how you actually prolong its longevity. You know, some of these, I'm not saying all cars, I'm saying some of these cars, you know, you might not drive it as a daily driver, but shit, when you do drive it, you need to open it up. So that engine could, you know, perform at optimum level. You know? Without, you know, what's the word for it? Without, basically, you know, certain cars you need to drive, man. Like if you got a sports car, it's designed to be driven. If you got a high-end, high-performance car, it's designed to be driven, man. Not driven, you know, as a daily driver, but when you do drive, you need to open it up, man. Now, if you have a daily driver, you know, that's where and when you need to keep up on maintenances, you know, especially oil maintenance. You know, making sure you have all your fluids, like your transmission fluid, your brake fluid, your blinker fluid, which is an inside joke, you know? So the machine can operate at an optimal level, right? It says, behold, victuals shall be so good, cheap upon earth, that they should think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. Right. And it has grown. until what we see today. And even today is not going to be as bad as it is going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be all hell breaking loose, man. It's going to be, you can't walk down the street without being afraid and cautious. You know, despite me having death angels all around me, I still keep my head on the swivel, being circumspect out here, man. Even though I prayed already. So I don't have any fear of anything going to happen, man. Because that would defeat the prayer, man. But for a lot of individuals that don't have death angels protecting them, especially here, maybe a couple weeks ago, there was somebody that was just, being chased with a knife. I don't know why he didn't run away. But like I said, the Most High controls all things. The Most High can make you feel like you can't go nowhere, as if you're in like some quicksand or something, man, and you're stuck. Or he'll put that spirit on you to have you turn into a vegetable and you just standing like a deer in the road, man. And then they're just gonna continue to stab you up because nobody gets away, man. You deserve what you get and you get what you deserve, man. And then in return, the Most High is gonna get rid of the perpetrator, man, the one that committed the murder. You know? The Most High, he controls all these things. So, verse 22, it says, "For many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine." So the majority of these people are going to perish of famine, man. And it's crazy because you're really going to see a lot of people here in this city being, put in that situation, man. Especially in all these states in which you can't recycle shit. Which, I mean, yeah, you can recycle, but they don't give you no money back like they would in a state like California, man. And then when, you see them standing in front of certain places asking for money for food, the majority of these people, they don't have any cash. They don't have dollars and cents. They're using their phones. They're using cards. And that's the damn devil trying to cut everyone off. And showing you, what the future is going to be like. That's why it's so beneficial to be put through these certain chastisements, to be homeless, to have to sleep in your car, to not have a job, so you can experience those things. And you could build on those experiences on how Yahweh Shem Yahushua got you out of those certain situations. And you can lean on those experiences in these days, man. That's what's so beneficial about the chastisement. But what are these people? What have they gone through? They think they're blessed. Which they know deep inside of their hearts of hearts that they're not. But they say those things because it makes them feel good, man. To be truly blessed is when people bow down onto you, man. And also to have this truth. That's signifies that Yahweh Shem Yahushua may be dealing with you. That's why when you go into the scriptures, all those prophets, they said, as the hopeful elect, hoping that they are the elect. So you got to run away from a nigga that already think they made it. Already saying that they're the elect. And then, those that agree and side with that individual, they just as guilty, man. That's the blonde leading the blonde, man. Right? You heard the bird in the background have to You know? It says, and the other that escaped the hunger shall the sword destroy. Because a lot of people, they're going to die on the hunt for food, man. You know, going on missions, the home invasions, breaking into people's houses. You know, trying to get food. Now, I don't know. It might have been me. But I kind of don't remember trying to slide the screen door off the window. But if I did, because I hardly go to the patio, so if I did, okay, Salakia. But, you know, there's going to be times in which, you know, people are going to try to break into your shit, man. To try to steal whatever they got, because they got a loser fucking mentality on them, man. You know? They can't go out there and get it themselves. They got to take for somebody else. And bring it back to some fucking staking ass whore with VD. That likes, you know, she rubs your shoulders and make you feel like a man. Right? But, you know, I'm just saying in general, I think it was me, and I just, you know, because my shit's locked up at all times. Not that I have too much shit anyway. I try to keep things at a modest level. They call it a minimalist, you know? Because I never know when I got to get up and go. Because it tells you in the scriptures, in these times, be as pilgrims upon the earth. Not having a certain dwelling place. You know? And as far as cars, as far as, you know, things of that nature, there might be a point in time when you ain't gonna have no transportation. You gotta do it on foot. And that's where you should have incorporated your training. At least your breathing, your respiratory. Because that's the first thing that you need in order to have that ability to walk a long distance. You also have to have breath control. You have to know breathing techniques, especially in bodybuilding or weightlifting too, man. It's not just lifting the heaviest weight. There's a lot of things that go into it. You know, and that's what you've been seeing on Instagram. Motherfuckers lifting 405, 585 and end up tearing their shoulder out of socket, man. Because they don't have the proper techniques. But continuing, it says, and the dead shall be cast out as dung. The modern day word for dung is shit. And there shall be no man to comfort them, for the earth shall be wasted, and the city shall be cast down. There shall be no man left to till the earth and to sow it. And these scriptures are self-explanatory. The trees shall give fruit, and who shall gather them? Because there ain't going to be no farmers hiring, you know, farm workers in these days, man. The world is going to be at war. It's going to be a wartime economy, martial law. You know, you're going to have ICE going door to door, confiscating people's possessions, confiscating their weapons. You know, putting people to death. Just like they did that dude in Minneapolis yesterday. You know? They said they had already took his gun away, and then somebody came behind him and shot him to death, man. All while he was already hemmed up by several other officers, man. So they're trying to, so Yahweh Shem Yahushai is putting that madman spirit on these people, man, and they're not gonna spare anybody, man. It's gonna be like one of these rap niggas, how they always brag about how they ain't sparing nothing. Like that nigga Little Baby, which he's a little bitch. You know, there was a video on him trying to act like he was a tough guy out here in Vegas, man. But you get these niggas alone, you put their ass in the dark alley, and they all bitches, man. I'm afraid of the nigga that ain't got nobody around him, man. You know, the stoic individual, man. Not the one that needs validation from, you know, a bunch of nobodies. You know, that if it wasn't for them, they wouldn't even be in the position around you in the first place. It says the grapes shall ripen and who shall tread them? For all places shall be desolate of men. So there's going to be a desolation of men. Because people are going to be getting put to death at a rapid rate. You know? Even right here, I think the jail is over here. You know, they got ICE that are picking people up from the jail and deporting their ass, man. They're not necessarily going and doing neighborhood to neighborhood operations from, you know, the information that I've gotten, the intel, you know. They're picking them up at that little jailhouse, man. You know? But as soon as they start going door to door in the neighborhoods, that's when you niggas are done, man. You through. Which I just did the SHOT show out here. You know, working as a union worker. And I was talking to an individual and they were telling me how, you know, he's trying to get his girl to get guns because he's a felon. And he knows something is coming, man. You know? These people are seeing what's happening on the news. Mainly the people on this side, but now the ones that they're killing and putting it on national news is you so-called white people, man. They killed the so-called white woman and then they killed a so-called white man. And I'm speaking from, you know, on outward appearance, having the mind of the world, man. What the world sees is two white people being shot down, shot up by ICE troops, man. You know? Which I can't wait. I can't wait till you officers go to these nigga neighborhoods, man, and wear their asses out, especially these black women, man. I hope you get them all. You leave not a stone unturned. You know? Continuing, it says, so that one man shall desire to see another and to hear his voice. For of a city there should be 10 left, and 2 of a field, which shall hide themselves in the thick groves and in the clefts of the rocks. As in the orchard of olives, upon every tree there are left 3 or 4 olives. Or as when a vineyard is gathered, there are left some clusters of them that diligently seek through the vineyard. Even so in those days, there shall be 3 or 4 left by them that search their houses with the sword. So it's going to be so bad out here that, you know, in lack of food, people are going to be doing more home invasions looking for it, man. You know, just as you saw in certain television shows like The Walking Dead, man. How they will have to go out and scavenge for food. You know? It says, and the earth shall be laid waste, and the fields thereof shall wax old, and her ways and all her paths shall grow full of thorns, because no man shall travel therethrough. The virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. Right, man. Because why? It's going to say it. In the wars, whether it be foreign or domestic, because you even see, not only do you see the Civil War in America brewing, but you also see World War III brewing, man. You know? So in the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, man. You know? So that pretty boy that you wanted to procreate with, he gonna go out one day, he ain't gonna return. You know? He ain't coming back home, man. Because really, you people don't have the skills to survive. They don't have Boy Scouts no more, man. And if they do, it's not as popular to be beneficial. Right? A lot of you don't know how to survive. You don't know what animals to avoid. You know, you don't know what to do when you cross the path of certain animals, man. Because you're too fixated on bullshit, whether it be Housewives of Atlanta, you know, BET. You know, you also got Tyler Perry. You know, that Medea bullshit. You know? This trap music. You know, all those different things in which you people fixate your minds to, instead of fixating your minds on survival, which you got to get through the survival scrolls, which is an inside joke, man. You got to revert back to the survival scrolls, man, which is the Bible. You know, and trust in Yahweh Shem Yahushai, right? It says, in the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. You know, and the mass majority of you people, you know, you're not gonna be able to, your body is gonna fucking lock up, man. I'm pretty sure there's a medical term for it, but if you eat such a disgusting diet with all these different carbs, these sugars, you know, your body is constantly expecting that. It's in those different bacteria. You probably got worms in your stomach. Your body is expecting that. That's why you people have these tumors on your stomach, man. And I understand, you know, through this weight loss process, right? I understand how you people are gonna suffer, man. See, I don't suffer on my diet, on the carnivore diet, man. I got enough energy to do 6 days a week in the gym, which my workouts are 3 hours and 30 minutes on average, burning anywhere between 1,600 and 1,800 calories, you know, and I'm ready to go the next day. I don't have any type of lag, you know, but you people, you do without a couple hours of food, you ready to go kill a whole goddamn city, but can't squash a grape. Even some of you in this truth, man, you're all out of shape, man. You know, I always had a high muscle percentage. You know, my weight, my fat comes from my midsection, which is due to, you know, drinking and shit. I admit it. You know, I take accountability for it. My record speaks for itself. You know, but you people, when you get to that point, that crossroad, you're not gonna be able to know what to do, man. You're gonna falter, and then your attitude is what's gonna get you killed, man. Because that's it plays on your mind mentally, and everybody else is having an attitude, having a bad day because of lack of food, lack of protein, nutrition, and you come up with the same energy. What do you think is gonna happen to you? That's why a lot of people are gonna die in the wars looking for food, man. And I was talking to him also, the dude, when I was working, going back to that, I was talking to him about how this terrain for over 2, 3, 4 million people is really fucked up, man. It's a desert. The only reliable food source is what was shipped into these casinos, man. The lakes are damn near dried up. All they got to do is blockade the river like how an otter does. You know, there ain't going to be no river flow, and you need water flow in order for it to be clean water. You go to the mountains, you people are going to die in the mountains, man. And then everyone has the idea, oh, I'm just going to go to the mountains. You motherfuckers don't know how to survive in them, man. So a lot of you have the intent to survive, but you're not putting you're not putting the commander in his position, which the commander, the author and finisher of your existence and faith, is Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, man. That's who you need in order to survive, because you got Nick from Canadian Prepper. He's always talking his shit and doomsday prepping, but that's going to be to no avail, man. Because he's agnostic. He don't believe in shit. So who is he going to call on? Jesus? Jesus don't exist. You know? It says here, now these things and understand them, ye servants of Yahweh Shai. Behold, the word of Yahweh Shai, receive it, believe not the powers of whom Yahweh Shai spake, or the false deities. Behold, the plagues draw nigh, and are not slack. As when a woman with child in the 9th month bringeth forth her son, with 2 or 3 hours of her birth great pains compass her womb, which pains when the child cometh forth, they slack not a moment. And this is the judgments of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, man. It's likened unto a woman in labor. You know? That's how they're going to come upon earth. The contractions are going to get tighter and tighter until the woman gives birth, which that birth represents Yahweh Shai delivering his elect out of the 12 tribes of Israel, man. Not just here in America, but throughout the whole world. The elect are scattered. But the predominant deliverance is going to be right here in America, man. Verse 39, it says, even so shall the plagues be slack you. Even so shall not the plagues be slack to come upon the earth, and the world shall mourn, and sorrow shall come upon it on every side. O my people, hear my word, make you ready to thy battle. So we have to be made ready to the battle, man. Because this is the ultimate test. And, I've been thinking in the spirit, meditating, right? Which, if anybody that has this truth in their mind, you could correct me. But for some odd reason, I think that we live this life to commemorate this Passover's deliverance, man. I think that, well, of course, in another dimension, we're already in the kingdom. But for some odd reason, I think that in this life, this is nothing but a dream, as the scriptures also go into. We're going to remember it as a dream. I think the Most High makes us relive this deliverance as commemoration of the Passover in the kingdom. And everyone relives their righteousness or their wickedness, and goes into that period of shame. Because are we not going to remember our past lives? Maybe a stipulation. I'm just speaking out of my heart. Maybe there's a stipulation in which we have to be put back into this time period to relive and experience you know, the evil and the goodness. But, you know, I just speak as a man, you know. I'm not saying that's doctrinal or anything like that. That's just something that, you know, I've been meditating on. Maybe this is us commemorating the Passover in the kingdom, man. Because it's going to be far beyond just reading the scriptures, and, you know, the Most High could have us relive this whole timeline again. Just so we could reestablish that appreciation, you know? It says, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth. He that selleth, let him be as he that fleeth away. He that buyeth, as one that will lose. He that occupieth merchandise, as he that have no profit by it. And he that buildeth, as he that shall not dwell therein. So what's up with all these different, like the IUIC, they trying to buy land and build, but the scriptures speak against that, man. Right now, the only thing that you are to be building is your faith, man. Your faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushua, man. Everything else doesn't even fucking matter. You know?
Shalom.
Hey, shalom, man. It says, he that soweth as if he should not reap, so also he that planteth the vineyard as he that shall not gather the grapes. They that marry as they shall not get no children, and they that marry not as the widowers. And therefore they that labor in vain. Right, man. For strangers, and going back to Canadian Prepper, man, his labor is going to be in vain at the end, man. Because you need to be laboring for that spiritual protection, that personal relationship, you know, that covering from Yahweh Shem Yahushua, and he's going to add on to you all the other things. So in my mind, yeah, there's going to be brothers in Canada that are probably going to come across Canadian preppers' labor, and they're going to reap the benefits of it, man. Just as all these other so-called preppers throughout America and throughout the world, the elect are going to reap those benefits, man, and be protected by those things. And it shows you that in these doomsday movies. I think it showed you that in The Road. It showed you that in Leave the World Behind. You know, and there's a lot of other different movies and television shows that show you that. Those that are prepping for others, man. It says, for strangers shall reap their fruits and spoil their goods, overthrow their houses, and take their children captives. You know, so a lot of you are going to get your children snatched up, man. Kidnapped. You know? That's going to be a big lucrative commodity, man. In these times, when all hell breaks loose. You know, when they snatch up your sons and your daughters, man. You know, to some, if it's Esau, to do their child sacrifices. You know, get that adrenochrome, right? For in captivity and famine shall they get children. And they that occupy their merchandise with robbery, the more they deck their cities, their houses, their possessions, and their own persons, the more will I be angry with them for their sins, saith Yahweh Shai. You know, but going back to the theme of this camp, you know, dealing with World War III. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 15, verse 28. It says, "Behold, a horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east," which is talking about the Eastern Hemisphere, man. That's where World War III is going to start. And really, it's already started. Now we're going to the next stage, which is going to be the war with the United States and Israel against Iran and its allies, right? It says, "Where the nations of the dragons of Arabia," which is those Ishmaelites, right, "shall come out with many chariots," which is part of their war machine, man, their military equipment. "And the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Also the Carmanians," which I did a lesson on it maybe this past week or a week ago, dealing with the Carmanians, which goes back to Iran, man. You know, so they're prominent in prophetic scriptures, right? It says raging in wrath. And, you know, they're mad now, but what's going to make them raging? I have a feeling that Ayatollah Khamenei is going to be killed, man. And that's just going to fucking, what do they call it, a smorgasbord or some shit? That's just going to flip the whole thing on its head, man. You know, they're going to go as the wild boar. It says, "Shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them." So they're going to join battle with those Arabians, "and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians." Right, because I also did a video, or part of that video, on the land of the Assyrians, which is now occupied by those United States military bases, man. So to upset that, that's why you had United States trying to move their troops out of those bases. But little do they know, Iran can hit them anywhere they're at, as they prove with the war against Israel, man. Which I believe Israel suffered more damage than Iran did, man. Because Iran knew prior that, you know, they were going to move those nuclear facilities. They were going to move that uranium enrichment, man. They already had that in mind. That's why they didn't get it. They didn't destroy it. And if they were smart, they wouldn't announce it. They would have went ahead and, you know, cut the tape to move with haste, right, to get that nuclear weapon, man. And now they're saying that they'll nuke Washington, D.C. So it's quite possible that they already have nuclear weapons, man. Which they're, if they don't have nuclear weapons, their allies that do have nuclear weapons are going to shoot them on their enemies, man. It says, "And then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature. And if they shall turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them." And who are they going to persecute? Those American troops, man. Those Israeli troops. Because we see on the world stage, Donald Trump is pissing off the NATO allies, man. And now NATO is rising up against this whore America, man. Which is all prophetic. Right? It says, "Then these shall be trouble bled, and shall keep silence through their power, and shall flee, And from the land of the Assyrians shall the enemy besiege them and consume some of them, and in their host shall be fear and dread and strife among their kings. And that's that pride goeth before destruction, man. Because, you know, Donald Trump is the epitome of arrogancy. He's the epitome of pride. So when those American forces are destroyed and getting destroyed and their asses handed to them, that's when that pride is going to go out the window, man. Because in order for America to win, you know, there's not an iteration that Dr. Strange could come up with that shows a favorable outcome, man. Because it's prophecy that's against America, man. Prophecy has defeated America, man. Prophecy has defeated you so-called white people, man, and is about to bring you to divine justice. And we're out here on the altar, as you know, your call brought it out, give credit where credit's due, proclaiming your sentence, your judgment, you know? And eventually that fire is gonna burn the sacrifice, which that fire is those thermonuclear missiles, and the sacrifice is you people, you know? We go to Isaiah chapter 13, and I'm gonna start at the top. It says, the burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amoz did see. Lift ye up a banner, which that banner is this truth, upon the high mountain. The high mountain is the high government. You know, the mountain that is above all other mountains, which that is representative of America, man. Exalt the voice onto them by coming out here and preaching this word and uploading your videos on, you know, online. It says, shake the hand that they may go into the gates of the nobles, going into nobility, man. The higher ups, you know, the rulers of the society, because these regular degular Edomites, they don't know what's going on, man. They're just basking in, you know, the perceived power that they have established through, you know, great robbery and murder, man. But other than that, they don't really know what's going on. You know, without the prophets, wouldn't nobody know what was going on, man. You'll still be reading the Bible as if it's just a regular book. You know? Which no other organization of religions are bringing out prophecies, man. And the prophecies that they do think that they have are just carbon copied from the scriptures. Verse 3, it says, I've commanded my sanctified ones, which are the elect. I have also called my mighty ones, which are the angels, right? For my anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. Yahweh of hosts, which that word host goes into armies, right? The Heavenly Father, He controls all things. He controls these armies, man. He controls the battlefield, man. And that's the reason why America has been, you know, seeming like they've been winning all these years. It's because the Most High has America as a golden cup in His hand, man. Right? It says, Yahweh a host, mustereth the host, the armies of the battle. So He's bringing these nations into conflict to pour upon them His indignation, man, to destroy them, to subjugate them, man. That's where you get, beat your plowshares or beat your swords in the plowshares, man, and your spears in the pruning hooks. Also, nations shall not learn war anymore. Right? It says they come from a far country. Now, what's coming from a far country are those thermonuclear missiles. From the end of heaven, even Yahweh, because Yahweh's spirit is going to be in those missiles, guiding those missiles to hit their target, and within that fire, intensifying it with his spirit, man. It says, even Yahweh and the weapons of his indignation, which later on in Isaiah in chapter 54, they're known as the waster. That lays waste whole cities, and some whole states, and others whole countries. They say the Satan II missile could destroy the whole United Kingdom. It could destroy the whole country of France. It could destroy the whole state of Texas. And if they released that Poseidon nuclear drone, which I had a dream a long time ago that California was flooded, they don't have to just hit it with one drone. They could hit that bitch with several drones, man, and cause a devastating radioactive tsunami, man. And then, have all the nuclear radiation gear on their soldiers and have their soldiers invade America, man. Which is scriptural, because it says in Jeremiah that one post should run to another and saying that the other side of the Babylon is taken. Which I believe there's going to be a nuclear detonation of some sort before Yahushua returns, man. Verse 6, how or holla ye, for the day of Yahweh is at hand, it shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Which, goes into terrible demon-like power, man. He's going to reintroduce himself. He's, man, when I juxtapose my spirit with others, like, Yahweh, Yahushua, or even the apostles, or even certain men with this truth and the testimonies that they give, we got very identical spirits, man. Just like Yahweh, he hides himself, I tend to do the same thing too, man. I tend to be doing a lot of things that he does, man. So I understand why he went to hide himself, because he feels underappreciated, man. So he wants to see you fall on your face and then cry for him, cry for help. And that's exactly what's happening in these times. Now we're returning back onto him, starting with the elect, crying, Abba, Abba, Father, Father. Verse 7, it says, therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. People are going to have strokes. They're going to be having heart attacks because of the fear, man. And it can happen at any moment. Any moment when Donald J. Trump gets the spirit on him to attack Iran, and Iran gets the spirit on them to retaliate, and the angels are working with them to persecute these damn devils and shut down the Strait of Hormuz and activate China with Taiwan and activate Russia to help against Israel You know? This shit is basically over, man. We at the final stages. You know? Because the next thing they're going to do, and they're going to do it fairly quickly, man. Because this war is going to produce that excuse. Just like previous wars produced the excuse of putting certain categories of people into concentration camps, man. Well, they're going to do that with everyone. Because now they're seeing that the new face of terrorism or anarchy is you so-called white people, man. So now they're saying, and they're setting the stage for them to chip everybody, to have chipping stations. And those are your new Japanese internment camps, man. Where you're gonna get put on the white bus and or put on the bus and taken to a train to go to a facility. It says, and they shall be afraid. Pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travaileth, as a woman giving birth, man. They shall be amazed at one. They shall be amazed one at another. Their faces shall be as flames. You know, they're going to be in fear. Behold, the day of Yahweh cometh, cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. So all you that are laden with your sins, you're going to be destroyed, man. Whether you die of hunger, whether you die of violence, whether you caught in destruction, the nuclear missiles, you know, and it's going to be because of your own sins. And now if I fall off, it's going to be because of my sins. But until that day, even though he slays me, I'm still going to trust in him, man. Yahweh Shah Ratazah, if it be his will for me to give him praise despite my shortcomings. How many of you niggas could say the same? You know? But you know, if I'm cool with being deceptive, deceived, like I made that video, I'm okay. I'm at peace with being deceived. We're continually to do righteousness. I'd rather do righteousness or go back to the spirit world. I never had a problem with the prospects of going back to the spirit world, and this was since a kid. I kept that same mentality, man. So you have to understand, what type of shit have I already been through to have that mentality already embedded in me, man? This is the only reason why I'm here. I always tell you, if it wasn't for the Bible, this was going to happen. If it wasn't for the Bible, that was going to happen. If it wasn't for Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, man, all bets are off. Because that's the only reason why I'm even here. Right? It says, for the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. And, you know, I don't be talking to the person on the other side of the camera, the one that's viewing me per se, man. I'm talking to and reaffirming to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua my allegiance to him, as he should already know. Right? It says, for the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. Why is that? Because of nuclear winter, man. You know, there's going to be nuclear winter before the missiles destroy America, man. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. Because the only way that Iran's nuclear program could be really devastated, which they already brought this out a decade ago. They have to use nuclear weapons. That's the only way to destroy their nuclear program, is using nuclear weapons. Now, if they use nuclear weapons against Iran, then Russia's going to use nuclear weapons against Israel and America. And that's when these nations are going to sue for peace, just as they did before. And then that's when they're going to establish these new systems as they did before. Whether it was the League of Nations or the United Nations, and now you're going to have the New World Order, which is going to be blocks. The North American Union, the European Union, the Eurasian Union, so on and so forth, man. Which is all going to be governed by AI, artificial intelligence, which they just came out of a movie called Mercy, which is an AI judge that is judging you. You got 130 minutes to prove your innocence. You have to score above a 92%, or you're gonna die. Or it's gonna dictate your food allowances, man. Or you don't have enough credits. You don't have enough merit to go get some steak. You don't have enough merit to get on the bus. We're shutting your chip off because of the things that you posted online. Now you're cut off from the system, man. Now you're gonna wither away and die. And they're gonna send robots to your house and kill your ass, man. It's called 86ing. It says the sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine because of the nuclear winter. And I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity, and I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease. Which the arrogancy of the proud, that's you so-called white people, man. You Edomites, starting with the rich elite bankers, you know, and also the lesser luminaries like Donald J. Trump. Which shit, man, if Donald J. Trump ain't the poster child of Edom, I don't know what it is. Are the elites as worse and as dumb as he is? Because if so, then, you know, man, Edom is in trouble. But then when you go into those documentaries or those historical accounts of Arthur Coester, he talks about how they used to kill those that were smart when they were living in, I want to say Georgia, or even Jordan. Either or, I forget. I mean, I think it's still in my bag, but you know, it's in the car, and I have to maneuver all types of shit, you know. But continuing, it says, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. I'll make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man, let me see. Slovakia. But it basically said it was like on some idiocracy shit, man. You know how what is his name, Macho Commando? They didn't want to know. They'll persecute you if you were too smart, man. Which The word smart ain't what you think it is. Just look it up in Etna online. The word smart means to cause pain, to suffer pain, according to Etna online. Right? But going back to verse 12, it says, I will make a man more precious than fine gold. So in these days, a man is going to be made more precious than fine gold, and it's going to be the elect man, especially those that get spiritual powers. Now, even in my deception, of thinking that I'm still in the truth, the Most High, he gave me all types of spiritual power dreams before I was in the truth and when I was before I was in the truth and when I was in the truth, man. Dreams of extraordinary strength, dreams of disappearing, dreams of flight, and then other dreams here and there. It says, even a man, then the golden wedge of Ophir, which was the gold that Solomon was getting from South America, man. It says, therefore I will shake the heavens and the earth shall remove out of her place. And how is he going to shake the heavens? Through that nuclear destruction. In the wrath of Yahweh of armies, and in the day of his fierce anger. And it shall be as the chased roe, which is a deer, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. Which is basically America, man. Because people are gonna flee this place, man. They ain't gonna wanna fuck with America no more. It says, they shall every man turn to his own people and flee everyone into his own land. Everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined onto them shall fall by the sword. Right? So those that want to stay here in America, they're going to die in that nuclear destruction, man. It says their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. And that's because of, whether it be Hellfire missiles, you got Ninja missiles, you got depleted, they're gonna probably use depleted uranium on you people, man. They're gonna be shooting you people down. Some are gonna be cutting you up, chopping you up. It says their houses shall be spoiled, which goes back to what Ezra saw. They're gonna be like madmen sparing none, but still spoiling. It says, and their wives shall be ravished. What do you think? What do you think is gonna happen to you women, man? Especially you good-looking ones, man. What do you think the word ravished means? And if you don't know, just look it up. That's why, I laugh at you dumb women, man. Because you're gonna get it the worst. Especially the black woman, man, that thinks her shit don't stink. You're gonna get it the worst. It says, behold, I will stir up the Medes. Now the Medes in this particular verse is talking about the Russians. Against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. One, they got their own resources, but two, the Most High is gonna put the spirit on them to not give a fuck, man. And go ahead and go about shooting their thermonuclear missiles on this place, man. Every single last one. It says their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, which is the silos, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. Right, because those missiles, when they get shot off, you know, they're not going to stop each other and say, no, it's a child. No, it's a woman. No, they're going to burn it up, man. It says in Babylon, which is America, the glory of the kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. So it's going to be as when the Heavenly Father overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, man. Which he did that by splitting the atom over above and vaporizing it, man. You know, and it became a Dead Sea. It says, it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. So you're not going to have the Arabian coming out here to do business, to own these liquor stores, to sell these pork dogs on the streets, man. You know, you're not going to have these leaders of these companies trying to establish businesses and whatnot here, man. No matter what industry. It says, but wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, because America's going to get turned into a vast desert, man. It is going to be labeled as the border of wickedness on how not to be. This is the judgment when you come against Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, man. It says, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there, and the wild beasts of the island shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces, and their time is near to come, and their days shall not be prolonged, man. So America's time is near to come. And as the scripture says, her days shall not be prolonged. So we're at the end of this shit, man. You know? We're at the end of this judgment. That's the only thing I don't like about it. Yeah, another thing about the carnivore diet is when you get to a certain period, because I'm like in 100-something days or whatever, bro, I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you exactly.
I'm on my way. Well, okay, but you're at the world market there, right? Like that's where you are. Okay. Yeah.
So I've been on it for about 4 months already, man. About it says 3 months and 28 days. So around this time period, you start to have to urinate a lot, man. You know, which I try to counteract with trying to get more electrolytes in my water, minerals and electrolytes in my water, right? But I'm going to go ahead and end it on this scripture. For all those that are straddling the fence, this wasn't going to be an in-depth World War III video. I could do that at home to really get to the nitty and gritty. You know, but this is Romans, which he was talking to the Israelites at Rome. Chapter 13, verse 11, it reads, and that, knowing the time, so you got to know the time that you're in, man, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. Right. So we see we're real close to being delivered, man. You know, so with that, I hope at least one brother of the elect was edified. You know, and I know it's about to be the Shabbat tonight. So I want to say a pre-Shabbat Shalom. You know, so with that, I'm going to say, Shalom.